Greetings, everyone. This is Pamela Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders Out podcast. Today, for episode number 217, I have a repeat. This is going to be, it's going to be a world record. She's the first person to be on my podcast, not once, not twice, not three times, not four times, but five times. So
Yay!
that's amazing because, wow, Catherine, for those of you who probably know or remember her, Catherine Cooper, a very dear friend of mine now through the podcast. We've had four wonderful, beautiful conversations already. Two of those are already live. Two of them are going to be live in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And now today is the fifth part that we're going to be doing. And just a little bit background. We had wonderful conversation again, and Catherine also is going to be. I'm super excited and happy to announce it. She's going to be one of the contributors in my upcoming book, the multi-authored book, Leaders with a Heart. It's going to be live on Friday, September 30th. So about 30 days from today. Can't wait to have the book in my hands. And Catherine will be one of the amazing leaders with a heart in that book. So I'm super proud of that. But anyways, Catherine, once again, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Payman. Thank you, my friend, for being always so gracious and just a wonderful person to work with. You know, you have a fan club with my friends. They love to hear your voice. And they
Oh,
say, wow, what a nice person he seems to be.
thank you.
So, yeah, it's you've made some points there.
Very welcome. Happy to hear. Hey, an open invitation. If your friends have even half a story as powerful as yours, they're welcome to be on my podcast to share their stories.
All right.
So they
All
can
right.
hear it
Thank
and you
you.
can let them know. But, anyways, so we just talked a little bit briefly, and you mentioned in the comments on the Calendly for topics something that is really beautiful that we can expand and have a wonderful conversation about. And that's what you mentioned is my first realization of my capabilities gave me the light of expansion, the power of giving, and the freedom of forgiveness. That's a beautiful topic. So you can start wherever you want on that. You're the star of the show. I'm only the host. So you can take this wherever you want, my friend.
My friends think you're the star of the show,
Oh, thank
Payman.
you.
So, and I say yes, and don't you forget it.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
um, when I say that the power of expansion, and I realize even to this day, back when I worked in that very private social club that was so enamored by so many people in this city, you weren't anybody um, unless you really belonged there as a member. And we were going to be having a special dinner meeting for some dignitary whom I can't even recall anymore because I dealt with so many that sometimes the names escape me. But I had done all of the pre-work on the party, and about an hour and a half before the party was to start, when people would arrive, uh, one of the head waitresses called down in a panic and said, "You must come up here. There's something wrong." And of course, my heart stops because this place operated like a Swiss watch. And nothing could go wrong. No excuses were accepted, ever. And because I arranged the party, everybody was looking to me. So that's where the buck stopped, right there. And I knew that even though I wasn't the boss, I was treated like the boss. And so the buck would stop at my desk and I'd really hear about it. And plus, we would have some very unhappy members, which was not allowed. So I went up and I looked at the problem, and something hadn't arrived that was supposed to come. Um, Things had gotten into a snafu. And so I made a judgment call because we didn't have time. Time was of the essence. And I just gave instructions as to what to do to clear the problem, and that if what I gave didn't work immediately, then we were going to go to plan B. So everything turned out. Everything was just absolutely perfect because You know, I still say God was at my shoulder for this job, or I would never have made it.
Mm.
And so the party went off without a hitch. It was a big success. I received a lot of accolades from the member and his party. And so the next day in the morning, I would have a meeting with the big boss, and I was his right hand. And he said in his accent, "You know, Miss Cooper, I hear what you did last night. I want you to explain why that happened." And I thought, well, you know, mistakes happen. I didn't make the mistake, but I corrected it. And yes, but what you did was very risky. And I said, yes, it was. Sometimes I realize in this job, I have to take a lot of risk. And he said, well, you are a highly intelligent, practical, logical woman. And I do not want you to ever do that again. Well, okay for you. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And I thought this to myself, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to keep myself off of the fire, because you're going to be real willing to put me into the coals. And so when I walked out of the office, I was a little annoyed. I was upset, but I went back over the events and I thought, yes, if given the opportunity, I would do exactly the same thing. And that payment for me was a marvelous awakening.
Wow.
It was as though a veil had been lifted. And I realized for the first time, really, I realized my authority, I realized my power, and it opened a sense of accomplishment within myself that I have never had before. And you know, you can't really go through life without a sense of good self esteem. And that
Totally.
gave me my self esteem
Wow.
right there. And so it opened up a new world. And after that, it was never again the same person, because I thought there really isn't anything I can't handle. A good friend of mine had many times made a comment to me when I would say to her, you know, this and this is coming up, and I don't think I can handle it, or I'm scared that I'll make a mistake, or you know, whatever. And she would always say to me, I have seen you come through hell and high water. I have seen you come through what they say at the 11th hour. I've seen you come in at the 11 and a half hour and make it. There is no reason why you can't accomplish whatever it is that you're
Hmm.
going to undertake. That day, Payman, I realized what she said, and I felt it and I knew it. And that was when Catherine was really born.
Hmm.
And so it opened up this expansive person that I had to now get to know. All of these qualities that I've had over the years were there, but they had been so squashed by my by my mother, by my half brother, by relatives, by teachers, and people who were not friends. You know, they were very unpleasant about a lot of things, but I always felt stymied. I felt squashed. I felt put down. And now today I said to myself, you don't have to feel that way ever again. You don't have to take anything from anybody, because you are capable. And you're capable of doing things that most people in your position, they couldn't do it. So that brought a sense also of being more open to people. And when you're more open to people, you can receive more
Hmm.
and you can become a little expansive. So the expansiveness in me turned out to be gratitude. It turned out to be um, kindness that I didn't even know I had.
Wow.
So that's what I meant by that statement. It was a marvelous, marvelous opening, and I realized that that man no longer had control of me, that someday I was going to have to break free of him, and I didn't know how I would do it, and the fear was there because he was a very sinister person, very cunning, and I didn't know what he was going to do to me because, as I mentioned several episodes ago, he threatened me and said, "Nobody ever tells me no, and one day you will pay for this." And so I realized then that I had the courage, I had the backbone, I had everything I needed to fight whatever came along. So, what a wonderful, wonderful expansion that was. That's the only thing I can call it, was an expansion.
Wow, powerful. What was holding you back all this time to make that shift earlier?
Well, Payman, I was raised in my mother's view. Um, if ever I felt proud of something, she would take that pride away, or that sense of accomplishment away, by saying, "Don't get a big head."
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree, I understood that. But as I said earlier, my religious background kept me down. Um, Mother certainly kept me down, and relatives, other people just never, ever once were supportive. And so, how do you grow without support? You can't. At least I don't think you can. I don't know of anybody that grew from childhood into an accomplished adult without 1 ounce of support somewhere in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got it. So, if anything, I got put down. If anything, more was expected, because whatever I gave was never enough, and it was never good enough. So, you don't learn that sense of achievement.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
that's why I never had it.
What made you finally take things into your hand and you say enough is enough? Was it a specific event or was it something that was growing progressively until it just you couldn't take it anymore?
Well, this event where I worked was the main energy
Mm-hmm.
behind my saying I'm not going to take any more.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned, excuse me, I learned to speak up for myself. And although I had one huge challenge still facing me, and that was going to be to break away at some point, because you see, as I said earlier, this man would have me followed, um, and I was watched. It got to the point where I could even actually feel it. I knew that eyes were on me that I couldn't see. And so that had to stop. And this event, when I learned within myself, I talked back to him, which is something I never did, ever. I talked back to him, and I thought, as I said, you can't tell me that I can't do anything, because I will do whatever I need to do to save my own skin, because I realize you're not on my side. So that was the realization right there.
Mm-hmm. So once the moment that you stood up for yourself and you said enough is enough and that you faced the man that was in a way holding you back, did you quit your job on the spot or was that something more?
No, no, I couldn't, because I would not have another job to go to.
Okay.
You see, nobody in the city that was of any import. There wasn't a company in the city that would hire me once they found out where I worked, because
Mhm.
they knew that their top boss was probably a member there, and their hiring me might put him in a bad light with the other members. because he would then get into, perhaps they were assuming, into some kind of situation that would be negative with the management of this club. So nobody was willing to hire me. And any job that I applied for, as soon as they found out where I worked, well, it was very nice of you to come in. We appreciate it, and we'll let you know. And I'd say, well, is there any chance that you'll really consider me for the job? And they'd say, well, it seems like you have perhaps more experience and capabilities than is required for this particular job.
So was that limitation only within the city you were in, or could you, for example, have gone to a different city or a different part of the country, for example?
Well, when you're being followed, no.
Okay.
You see, you're being followed, and wherever you're going to apply, and even if
Mhm.
you're accepted initially, it could have been in Arizona, could have been in anywhere.
Yeah.
When he's having you followed, that opportunity goes right out the window, and you will
So there
not
was
work.
there was no way for you to just disappear and go off the grid
No,
and
no,
reappear in a different part of the country and
no,
uh,
no, not unless I had somebody with the, I don't know, the CIA or somebody
to
who
change
was
your
willing to
identity.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, give me a change of identity. There really wasn't any,
Wow.
there wasn't any place I could go because he would find me. And when I tell people that story, they find it difficult to believe. But honest to goodness, this man had been a member of the CIA in his very youth um, during World War II. Um, he had been a spy, what they called the OSS at that time, which was the
Yeah.
precursor to the CIA.
Hmm.
And you didn't mess with those people.
Yeah, I remember from a previous conversation we had that, we talked about doing like a past life reading, and you mentioned something that you and him, you're connected by at the soul level, and at one lifetime, he was you were his favorite slave or something like that.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
That's what a psychic medium had told me.
Wow.
Because I asked the medium, why can't I seem to get away from this man? No matter what I do, no matter where I go, doors are blocked.
Mm.
And she said, because this is a spiritual journey for you.
Soul contract. Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And so you were in many embodiments with him. And in those, all of those embodiments, he was vicious um, to the nth degree. He would have people killed if he didn't like the way they looked at him. Um, so you were his favorite slave.
Wow.
And so he wasn't going to let you go. And he's not going to let you go in this lifetime until you force the issue.
So how
And
long?
so I said to her, I'm scared. You know what? I don't know what he's going to do to me. He might murder me. I don't know.
How did you?
And
How did you reconnect with this person in this lifetime? Did you?
uh,
How did you? Was he your first boss? Your first?
well, yeah, he was the he had a position open for a secretary,
Okay.
and I didn't have a job at the time.
Okay.
So an agency set me up
Mm.
with that interview, and I was hired right away.
You know, sometimes when we meet people or when we face situations, sometimes we have a gut feeling. So the first time when you met with this person, did you have any gut feeling or any instincts about them that hey, this might not be a good fit, a good move? I know it's probably hard for
I
you to answer at this time because that was probably years ago, but do you remember anything on
Well,
that
I did.
in your first
Yeah,
meeting with him?
I had somewhat of an inkling, although my instincts at that young age, I was 20
Mm-hmm.
years old.
Yeah,
So my instincts at that age, I wasn't paying too much
sure.
attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
And but my instinct was that there was something about him I didn't like.
Mm,
But I thought, well, you can't go on that. You can't
sure.
make a life on that. So I just accepted the job. And
How was he treating you initially, and did you notice a change in the way he treated you from the moment when you started working with him, and progressively, did you see a change in the way he
yeah,
was? behaving and treating you?
Yeah, at first he was very proper. At first he was very formal
Mm-hmm.
because that was his background.
Okay.
And that's what he wanted as the atmosphere in this club. He wanted it to be very formal and very structured. And so he was going to teach me things um, about that structure. But I noticed a couple of months after I started, in that day, short dresses were the in thing. And I had on what I thought was a particularly striking dress, and it was a beautiful hot pink. And I had the accoutrements to go with it, the high heels and the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. I dressed for success, as we now say, or did say. And he looked at me as I was coming into the room, and he said, "Well, my, look at you. Isn't that dress just a bit short?" And it really wasn't, payment, because that was not my personality. And I said, "Well, I guess it depends upon how you look at it." And he made a joke out of it, which gave me a very weird feeling up my spine.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm going to have to watch out for this man. He is not he is not going to be easy to deal with.
Mm,
And I may have to leave, not knowing.
sure.
I may have to leave. I'm not going to put up with somebody who's disrespectful, let's say.
And then from then it went downward.
Well, it did and it didn't. He taught
Okay.
me a lot. Oh my goodness, what I learned about that place and about how people were, and the decorating, the accoutrements that made that place the place.
Mm-hmm.
It We started out, and I say we because he was only there maybe 4 or 5 months before I came on, and he took that place. We took that place from a fallen down atmosphere, $250,000 in debt,
Wow.
to to having over millions of income in a year. So that's how it built.
Beautiful. So over the time, did your responsibilities and your role increase? Did he started
Oh yes,
trusting you more,
very,
or was
yes, yes. I was his secretary, but there was a position that was going to open, he told me, and it would be in the catering department.
okay?
And I happened to share the office with the catering manager at that time, and um, she was getting ready to retire. And he said to me one day that he said, "This is strictly between you and me, Catherine, that she's going to be leaving, and I want you to take her place," which just scared the bejiggers out of me because that was really quite a responsibility. So
That was
that's
that was you said in Minneapolis?
no, in Milwaukee.
Oh, Milwaukee. Okay. And
Yeah.
around what year was that?
Oh, good heavens, that would have to be. I was, I think 22 or 23 by then. So
Okay.
I can't tell you the year anymore. It's probably in the 70s, the early
Okay.
70s.
Okay.
And as I said, I learned a tremendous amount. I learned a tremendous amount. He was an excellent teacher, and he realized that I liked to learn, and that was a particular favorite attitude that he liked in people, their willingness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it because I wasn't ever allowed internally to give myself credit, but I caught on quickly.
So do you think that it was purposely holding you back in a way so you don't overshadow him in a way, but he realized your talent, your potential. He wanted to keep you in his team, So, but in a way to continue, because he knew that if he let you go, you might even overshadow him. But he was, in a way, trying to hold you back, not only because he saw the potential, but also he wanted you to be in his team and not in someone else's team, so to speak.
Well, that may have been a factor in the back of his mind, but
Mm-hmm.
his mind was so complicated that you never really knew what he was thinking. And he would certainly never reveal it to you. He had an excellent, what we now say, an excellent poker face. He never revealed. And except if you did something that displeased him, you made a mistake. As an example, I made a mistake in writing a letter one day early on as his secretary. And he called me in and he said, "This is wrong. Why did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I'll correct it." "Well, we don't make mistakes here. And you have to learn that right on. We don't make mistakes here." And I looked at him and I said, "Then you should have hired God, because I'll make mistakes, but I will be glad to correct them." And I
Wow.
walked away.
Wow. Okay, I see. How long did you spend working with them in all these years?
22 years.
Wow. So at any time did you see your relationship with them, professional relationship in a way, improve, deteriorate, or still remain the same?
Um, I was given more and more and more responsibilities as the time went on. The thing that he liked to do in his cunningness and in his viciousness was he liked to play people against people.
Mm,
So he would, behind my back, give me praise to other people. And that in turn made them more respectful of me, giving me more power. But if he saw that that power would come to fore at any point, he was quick to squash it, you
okay.
see. So what his game was, I wasn't always sure. I think it would take a good psychiatrist really to figure that one out,
Did you at any time
because
just try to just confront them and say, hey, let's have a talk. What's going on here? What do you expect from me?
um, I at one point I rather broached the subject
Hmm.
very cautiously. You had to be very careful around him.
Okay.
Um, and I said something to that effect. I'd like to know more of what my role is. And he said, "Your role is exactly what you are doing right now.
Oh.
The long and the short of it, that's it."
You know, the way you said that, your role is exactly what you're doing now. I see that as not just as a casual answer, but as a much deeper meaning. Not
Oh,
only you,
yes.
not only your role at the job, but also your role in this lifetime, the soul contract you're doing with. I mean, you're fulfilling at this specific moment. Do you feel that way too? Because that's what I
Oh,
felt.
yes.
The moment you said, that's what I felt.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I
Wow.
realized that this was a spy game. This was a cat
Wow.
and mouse game. And I was going to have to be very, very careful.
Mm.
And that was frightening because I didn't know what was going to happen. And up until the point that he that he volunteered in a very odd situation, that he said he loved me, it made my skin crawl. It just repulsed me. I just shiver, and I can still remember the feeling. I'm thinking to myself as he's standing there holding my hand, telling me this, and it's totally out of place. It's totally not anything to do with our job,
So,
which what we were discussing. So it was very frightening.
so when he said he loved you, did he mean that in a professional way? Or did he mean that in a romantic way?
No, in a romantic way.
Oh, and
Here I am. Now and I realize that I'm in the thick of it now. Now I'm in
okay.
trouble. Now I'm
And
in trouble.
prior to that, did he make any moves on you? Did he try to make
No,
you indirectly know that, hey, I have my eyes on
no,
you. I'm interested in you.
no, no,
Okay.
because that would not be allowed within the
Okay.
business complex.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why I say this was a spy game. And there was, the cat and mouse that had to go on all the time. Because, of course, he would never want to look bad to other people.
Was he
He himself,
was he married at the time, or was he?
oh, of course. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were married. He was married. He had a grown son.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
So he was much older than you, right?
yes, much older.
Okay. Wow. So when he said that to you, that he loves you, how
Mhm.
did it affect the rest of the relationship with them, working relationship with them after that?
Well, that at that point, when he said, "I love you," and he was holding my hand, he had tears in his eyes because he had been caught doing something very bad when on his residence, at his residence, and was almost arrested. He killed a neighbor's dog,
Oh no. Wow.
and so he was very upset. Um,
Did he
and
kill
he
the
was
dog
feeling
accidentally or on purpose?
no, on purpose,
Oh no.
because the dog had come into their yard and had a lot of acreage, a lot of acreage. He lived
How
on
did
a
he kill the
farm.
dog? Did he shoot the dog or did he
Shoot it.
kick it?
Yeah, he shot it. No, he
Oh
shot it.
no.
And he was feeling sorry for himself. He was feeling humiliated and ashamed of himself. He was feeling a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
So this revealing to me that I love you, and I thought to myself, you don't love anybody but yourself. Oh,
Mm.
how disgusting! And that's when he made the big play, and he said, "I will give you everything that you've never had. I will take you to all points of the world in traveling."
So
Um,
this was a wealthy and influential man, right?
I don't know that he was influential at all, but he had a certain amount of money, yes.
Mm.
And he said there was a little farmette that he owned. And he said, you could live there and I wouldn't charge you anything for it. You could live there and because I think you'd like it there.
So
And
the question
go
comes to
ahead.
mind: was he trying to make you as his mistress, or was he trying
Yes.
to
Oh,
divorce his
yes.
wife and replace her with
No,
you?
no, no. No, no, no. He would never divorce his wife because
Okay.
his wife had the money.
Okay.
His wife had a lot of money. And, in that culture, if you will, money
Mm.
talks. Money
Sure.
is the king.
Hmm.
So, no, I was to be his mistress. So we were going to travel, and he would give me this farmette, and um, he would be very good to me, he said. And that's when I said, I don't think I can do that.
Mm.
I don't think I can do that. Thank you, but I can't do that. And then he dropped my hand. He squared himself up a little bit in his chair and he said, "Okay." And I can still see him. "Okay."
Did he say to you, okay, you
But
can think about it and let me know later?
no,
Take a
no.
few days to think it through?
This
No?
is this is how the conversation went. He said, "Okay." And then he looked at me and his face changed. And he said, "But I want you to understand that nobody tells me no.
Oh, okay.
Ever. Nobody." And at some point, when you least expect it, and he said, "And I can have time on my side. So you don't know when I will have my day of retribution, but I will have it.
Whoa.
And you'll never know when it's coming."
So did you try to make your life and your work like a hell after that day, or
No, no, because there again, he realized that I was very good at what I was doing, and I
you're
was
an asset
promoted
for him? Yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
that catering job. And
Mm-hmm.
he could not make it without me because now I can realize, and years after I left there, I realized that I was that good.
So did you
Um,
try, once you realized that you were that influential in his business, did you try to negotiate a better deal for yourself and get a raise or anything like that?
well, when I got promoted, of course, there was a raise,
Mm-hmm.
but not much of one really to
Sure.
consider. And because he did so much financially for that place, he took
Mm-hmm.
them from a $250,000 deficit
Sure.
to owning over $1 million a year, and
And
I
back then,
was part of
and
that.
back then, a million was probably like 10 million now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was between the chef and myself. You see, the chef was the star of that show, and I was the star of the. He was the star of the back of the house. I was the star of the front of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and I dealt with all of the members personally.
Wow.
So, and I set up all of their parties um, and engagements. I set them all up, and and I was very good at it, and people liked me, and I could handle the toughness of the business because I handled all the bartenders, the parking lot, the front desk, and all of the bell staff, the front desk staff. So I had about 40 to 50 full and part-time employees under my jurisdiction. And in every, well, in many important parts of the business. So he couldn't do without me because he would have to start to train somebody all over. And I think he realized that there were people that he could train, but he could only train them so far because they didn't have the interest and they didn't have the stamina. That job took a lot of stamina.
So while you were going through all of that, did you have any friends or family that you can talk to? Were you still in
And
touch and talking with your mother at the time? Or any close friends or even
my mother was
colleagues?
no, my mother was not the kind of person that I could have ever brought this to.
Did you make amends
She
with your mother after that? I remember at the time when you left your town, she was not happy. But after that, did you make peace with? I mean, try to get in better terms with her and talk with her and have
Well,
an
I mean, there was never any big rift
okay,
where I wasn't speaking to her or she wasn't
okay.
speaking to me. We didn't go through that. But
Mm,
there was no one I could talk to. And so when this threat came, I did finally tell my osteopathic physician when she was
mm,
adjusting my neck and my back. And she said, "You are under a great deal of stress, and I
mhm.
think you ought to talk about it." She was a lot older than I was, and she
Wow,
had a lot of moxie. And so she said, "There is something that is causing this, and I can feel it when I'm adjusting your back and your neck." And so she said, "If you want to tell me about it, I'll listen." And I told her, and she was very frightened for me. And she said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to write this down." She said, "I want you to write it down, what happened that day." And she said, "Give me a copy, keep a copy for yourself, obviously." But she said, "I'm going to give it to my attorney. Should anything happen to you, then
wow,
we'll know that he was the cause."
wow. Okay.
So she was basically the only one I could tell.
Did you at any time try to think of filing a report with the police or?
What were they going to do? What
Yeah,
could they do? You had
good,
to have proof.
good point. Yeah.
You see, the police wouldn't have cared.
Especially back then, it was a different time. Yeah,
Well, and even now, you have to have proof.
sure.
Now, if back then I could have made some sort of recording,
Yeah.
excuse me, if I could have made some sort of recording or video, but we didn't do that back in those
Yeah, the
days. See?
technology back then, yeah.
Right.
Technology was not there, yeah. Now it's easy, just take your
Exactly.
phone, but before there was no such thing, yeah.
No, no such thing at all. So, and you could have somebody's line tapped if you knew the right people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
You see, if you knew the right people. And I wasn't sure that he didn't know the right people. So, and the man who was in charge of our security was a former police officer.
Okay.
And so that could have been done because that police officer had a lot of contact still with the current police department.
Sure.
So things could have been arranged.
Hmm. Wow.
So you
So
see that was the threat I was under, and that was the tension, that was the extreme stress that I had to deal with every single day of my life.
how did you handle that? What was the thing that kept you going as opposed to just dropping to say, I'm out of here or I can't take this anymore?
What was I going to do, Payman? What was I
Yeah.
going to do for a living?
You were
Who was going to
alone.
support
Yeah.
me?
Yes, indeed.
I
Yeah.
had no money. I had no backing. I had absolutely no way
No
of supporting
boyfriend, no
myself.
fiance, no husband at the time?
Nobody.
Okay.
Nobody.
Wow. Yeah.
No. And back in that day, Payman, I would never, ever have put myself into the situation
Mm-hmm.
of depending upon a boyfriend.
Sure.
No, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. That was not okay. And in this day and age, I would not. I still would not.
Sure.
It's not my personality. But the only thing you can do when you are so far down is just keep going,
One day at a time. Yes.
one day at a time. And the tension was always there, always there. So it would gnarl at my stomach. Finally, by the time I was 27, I became very, very ill. I almost died.
Wow.
And um, the surgeon who helped me, I had to have an operation. And when I came to and was back in my room and that, he came and sat with me and he said, "We almost lost you today." And I was shocked. And he said, "It took three of us surgeons to figure out what in the heck was wrong with you when
Wow.
we got inside. You were such a mess." So he said later on, "This is all due to stress." And I thought, if you only knew, if you only knew.
Wow.
So that's what I lived with until the psychic lady said to me, "You're going to have to leave him." And I said, "You have no idea how that scares me." And she said, "But you're still going to have to do it, because if you break this connection that he's had over you for all of these probably hundreds of years,
Sure.
if you break it now, you will never have to go through it ever again. You'll break that connection forever."
Do you think that you've completely broken off from him?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that's when I started to decide, you see, this is how God works in us. And this is what I'm trying to,
Mm-hmm.
in some way, convey to the people that I talk with and help them out of their fear and being stuck. God works with you from the back. The
Sure.
God comes from the back and says, "Now is the time." There's that gentle prodding. Now is the time. Now is the time. It's like somebody's almost whispering in your ear. And I thought, okay. And what really cooked it for me was that he was starting to take vacations.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, the first vacation was only a week, and he left me in charge. Now I have a 6-story building and 150 full and part time employees to think about, all
Wow.
on my own. Plus, I had to do all of the catering and all of that. Plus, I had to be there on the weekend, uh, only on a Saturday because we have closed Sundays, but I had to be there for any major party going on.
So basically, you were
So
running the place. It was
yeah,
you
yeah,
running the show.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And nobody knew it because he would not tell anybody.
But
And
it's one thing for him to tell people, but when people able to see it, that it was you that was basically running the place, without you, it would fall
no,
apart.
no, no, it was they knew that I had a crucial part, but you have to see, you have to understand that this is not a business that they are at 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. They come and they go. They come and they go. And if they have to use my services, that I had to use, and I had to party and make sure that everything ran well. And to them, that was the only reason I was there. So no, it was, and then he did that for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next time, I think it was about the third or fourth vacation, he was going to be gone for 3 weeks, and his attitude was getting very cocky, which I was very surprised at, because up until then it had been extremely professional, very straight lined, and so then it was 3 weeks. And, I began to realize that when he would come back from vacation, I didn't get any raise in my pay. I didn't get any kind of a bonus for doing all of this work. I never even got a thank you. And that,
Wow.
excuse my language, but it really pissed me off. It
Sure.
really did. Um, and I thought, how dare you? Here I am working where if this was any other place, I would be paid probably $10,000 a year more than you're paying me. And
Mm-hmm.
I even broached that subject with him once, and he said that is absolutely not true. You would not be making that much more money, even if you were a man. That would not happen. So there was no talking with him,
Yeah.
and but that's where things started to snap inside of me, and that was God acting.
Sure.
And I thought to myself, I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I cannot go on like this. I'm finished. I'm through. And so little by little, I stopped doing the little things, the little details that would make the place a success.
Mm-hmm.
Little things, I just let them go. And finally, one day he said to me, "Did you notice thus and such in the lobby?" And I'd say, "Oh, all right. Well," he said, "Well, why didn't you have it fixed?" And I thought, "Why didn't you have it fixed? You're the boss. I'm not in charge of that." So, and then he began to catch on. He began to understand that I wasn't playing his game anymore. And then things got really ugly.
So were you trying to get fired, or you just didn't
I
care this
didn't
time?
care. I didn't care. One
Mm,
way or the other. If you want to kill me, kill me. Take the gun, take the knife, whatever you're going to use, just kill me. Get it over with, because I'm sick of this. I am not going to live my life like this anymore. I would be so tired when I'd get home from work,
sure.
came in. There were times that I walked into my living room, took off my coat, and suddenly I realized that I didn't know how I got home. I couldn't remember how I got home. I was
Wow.
so exhausted, and I didn't want to live that way anymore.
You were working from, do you remember from what time to what time was your shift?
Well, my shift was typically 8 o'clock until 5.
So eight in
Um,
the morning to 5 in the afternoon?
right,
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
and typically, but sometimes, because there was so much to do and so many details to look after, I would be there until 6 o'clock, 6:30, and by that time that he had already left for the day, and I didn't get paid anything more, because I was considered management.
No overtime pay. Wow. Mm,
No overtime pay for management.
wow. So, and then when did you decide what, tell us the day or the moment that you said enough is enough. I'm done. I'm out of here.
That was the time when he took a 3 week vacation, and
Okay.
started to get very cocky and very, oh, cavalier. And
So
I
did
thought
you?
there is something going on here that is behind the scenes that I don't understand, but I'm going to get the bad end of this. I don't know what it is, but it's coming.
So did
So I began to hear from the maitre d' that
okay.
the boss was having a struggle with one of the men who was on the board of directors, who
Okay.
he had to answer to. He had to answer to the board of directors. They were his boss. There was a struggle going on between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like the direction that was going to take a lot of things. And when he
Do you think he would have lashed on all his frustration on you?
no, um, not anymore. Again, he has to be careful
Mm-hmm.
because he knows that, yeah, he has power over me about getting another job. But if I leave, excuse the language, but he's screwed
Mm-hmm. No, he
because
knows that.
I handled so much there, so much that nobody ever saw.
So did you leave
And
before he came back from his vacation? So by the time he came back, you were not there anymore. You
no,
waited until
no,
he came
no,
back.
no, no, not at all. I stayed through and things started to get real ugly. And then I realized he made a comment to me one day, something about, what the hell do you care? And that was not like him. So I realized that things were turning, um, that Damoclean sword that was swinging, well, I was getting closer to it. So I don't, there wasn't one specific incident. It was just I was not doing all of the little things that made that place absolutely perfect. And so his attitude got worse and worse and worse. And finally, um, he set me up and he set me up with a very unpleasant situation in which when I was going through it with a woman who said she wanted to have a party at the club, and she was not a member, and she was very vicious. I realized at that point, and I think it was God talking to me, is watch yourself. This is a setup. And so things that were impossible to have at the club, she would turn around in a very vicious manner. And I had to get out of that because, as I said, I realized that the Damoclean sword was swinging and my neck was getting so close. And so there was that. Then he set up one of the other employees to tell me that at my front desk, we had a cigar counter, some very expensive cigars. And they were trying to tell me that my inventory was off. And so money was missing,
So basically
you
telling,
see,
okay, that you were stealing from them. Wow.
basically. Yeah.
Oh.
And that I wasn't really in control. Then there was an incident um, with a Black employee on my staff. And there wasn't an incident, but he made an incident. He called me down. Oh, he was up in his room and he called me at my desk, and he said, "You have so and so on on duty as a bell person." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Get rid of them."
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, why?" I thought maybe something had happened that when I wasn't there. And he said, "Because the board doesn't want Black people
Oh, wow.
to be here." And I said, "Oh," and then again, God whispered, "This is a setup. Watch it. Be careful." God's whispering. And I said, "Well, if I do this, there has to be a legitimate reason. Otherwise, she can come back and sue us for
Mm-hmm.
discrimination. And I
Exactly.
wouldn't want to put the club in a bad light.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can tell me that there were some incidents, I have to give her 3 chances. I have to warn her, then I have to give her a letter telling her what the situation is and that if it continued, I would have to let her go.
Sure.
And then there would be, I said, so I have to go through all of that. So it wouldn't be a real quick process.
Mm-hmm.
And he made some comment that I was trying to give him a hard time. And I said, no, sir, I'm just
This
doing
is a
what
rule, law.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the law. And I want the club to be able to follow the letter of the law.
For the best interest of the establishment. Absolutely. Yeah. No. Wow.
Exactly. So little things like that went on. And then the woman that shared the office with me was his secretary, and made things extremely unpleasant in the office. So then I would get called in. She would say that I had been uncooperative, or I had been um, unfriendly, or some silly, weird thing. I mean, when I would walk into the office in the morning, as you normally would when you see somebody for the first time in the day, you say good morning.
Yeah.
And she would look at me and she'd say, I need to talk to you about that. Excuse
First
me,
thing
you
in the
need to
morning.
talk to me
Wow.
about what? And she said, you know, I really don't like it when you come in and you say good morning. And I said,
Yeah.
well, that's the polite thing to do.
Yeah.
And well, it makes me uncomfortable. Please don't do it again. So then she went into him with a different sort of story, saying that I was making her uncomfortable. All this little picky BS that went on.
Wow.
And it went on time after time after time after time, until finally one day, and I had an understanding with the man who was the comptroller in the business office, and we would have lunch together because we were heads of the department and we had to eat at a certain time. And I would tell him some of the things that were going on, and he would tell me how he had been treated by the boss, which was very nasty. And I said to him, why don't we write each other a letter of recommendation, because we're not going to get one from this place. They're going to fire both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we did. I mean, that's how bad things were.
Wow.
And it was just vicious and ugly. And finally, one day he called me into the office. It was a Friday. Um, and he said, there's too much going on here that I don't like. Um, and you are the fault. And I said, okay, tell me how. And he said, well, the staff doesn't like you. When I said, well, I'd never found that to be a problem. Well, it is. They think you're arrogant. And the staff doesn't like this. And they just they don't like your whole attitude. And the members are starting to notice. And I thought, you're crazy. Nobody's noticing anything because I'm not any different.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So he said, I'm letting you go as of today. Pack up your desk, and that's the end.
Wow. What do you think made him do that? That he was willing to finally not just let you go off the job, but completely indirectly also cut the ties of the soul contract you might have had with them for life after lifetime.
I don't know what made him finally decide. Oh, he did say to me in that what they call exit interview,
Mm-hmm.
he did say that he had heard from others. And I did share the story a little bit about what he was doing um, with me.
Mm.
I did share it with one of the other employees who I thought I could trust. Obviously, I could not.
Yeah.
And so she took the story back to him, and he said, I realize that you have nothing but contempt for me. And I
Okay.
said, that's true. And I thought, I'm fired anyway. Why not? And
Exactly.
I said, yes, that's true. And I said, and besides that, um, I think you're arrogant. And I said, you're not easy to work for or with.
And you were being very nice by saying that because you could have said it in a much more colorful way. I would have.
Oh, yeah. And so, but I will always try to retain
Mm-hmm.
my dignity.
Sure.
And And then he said some more. And I looked at him and I said, you can fire me, obviously, but it's going to take 3 people to replace me. Well, that's arrogant, he said. That's your arrogance. And I said, no, sir, you raised me in this business from the very beginning. You made me the success that I was at this place. You knew exactly what you were doing all the time. You knew exactly what I could handle and what I couldn't handle. And I became so valuable to you that you won't be able to operate this place without me. And that's on you, not on me. You see, he said, you are arrogant.
Do you think it was
And
in a way this? Go ahead.
I said, if I'm arrogant, I learned at the feet of the masters.
Do you think in a way he was kind of disappointed in what he hoped, the plan he had in his mind for you? Like, for example, he was expecting it by training you and raising you to become his right hand, so to speak. But also
Right?
he had envisioned for you to be not just an employee, but also his mistress to
Yes.
to help him take the business to the next level.
Yes.
By you saying no to that in a way, do you think that contributed to him being so hard and at the end realizing that he couldn't have you? Well, whatever, just let you go. Because he realized that he couldn't own you.
Yes. Yes. Because he did say to me early on, um, in the earlier years, he said to me, you are like a fine, fine horse.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, he said, you are a free spirit, and nobody will ever keep you by hemming you in, by putting you in a corral. He said they will have to let you go to be free because then you'll come back. But as soon as they try to control you, they will lose you.
Especially the way he was doing it, which was all by manipulation, intimidation. That's not the way
Yes,
to win somebody's heart and respect.
exactly. Exactly. And he
Mm-hmm.
didn't expect me to have the will of steel that I had.
Mm.
He did not expect that. He thought this was the person that he could control, manipulate, and use to his benefit.
Do you see any parallels between this, what you just went through in this life, and of course the life that you mentioned when you were his favorite slave in a way? Of course, none of us we can't know anything about that life, but do you see some kind of parallels in that you were in a way his favorite employee, his favorite slave in a way, so to
Oh,
speak?
absolutely, absolutely.
Among all the
And
employees in that joint, you were the one that in his
yes,
mind you were the number one.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, to him, he has no idea
Hmm.
of the past lifetimes.
Did you
So
did
it
you did you
might
talk
have
about that
might
to him at all? Did you bring that up to him?
never. Oh heavens, no. That would
Um,
have been he would have laughed at it.
oh yeah.
He would have said that's ridiculous.
So after you
Excuse me.
left that position, did you keep in touch with them, or was the last time you
Oh
saw him when
heavens.
you walked out of his office?
I walked out of his office. That's the last time I ever saw him.
Do you think he's still alive, or
No, I think he's passed on. I
okay,
tried looking up some things on the internet, and there
okay,
was it wasn't stated that he had died, but that the estate and so forth
okay,
had gone to somebody else. So
okay? Wow.
yeah, it was yeah, he's gone.
Do you think if he were alive now, that you would be able to have a conversation with him now and try to make amends, or
Oh heavens, no. Oh
even
heavens,
in
no. I would
today
never
and
make amends.
no?
No, no. That's absolutely out of the question. Absolutely out of the question because now I'm 10 times the woman and the person that I was then. And so
Yeah,
now he would have nothing to do with me.
he could not control you at all. Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. and he would not be a very happy man.
Do you think it would be a lot softer now with age and with wisdom now if you were still alive?
No,
No, huh?
no, he was too cunning. You have to remember this is an OSS agent.
Too big of an
Somebody who
ego.
is,
Yeah, too proud.
yes, this somebody who somebody who is always in masterful control,
Mhm.
always, you see.
With a
And
massive.
the
Mhm.
only thing that would make him upset is when God got kind of, if you want to say it this way, and it's a
Do
silly
you
way to
think?
say it,
Do you,
but
do you think he was a narcissistic?
oh, absolutely. He didn't care about anybody but himself. And the first the first psychic medium that I saw brought him up to
Mm,
me and said, "This man has a black monkey on his shoulder. He's
wow.
running away." And he said, "Whatever it is, it's very black and very dark. And he has run away so that people will not find him." And he thought that if he came to this community and involved himself with this type of business, that they would never think to look for him.
Do you think in his next? I mean, we're just speculating here. Do you think in his next reincarnation, his next life, he would be a lot more gentle and understanding now that
I
he's
doubt
freed
it.
himself from the shackles of what was holding him back?
No, I don't think so. I think that he's going to have to come back on an earthly mandate again, be born all over again, and as we say, in a baby body and start all over. And he has a lot of illumination to come through, a lot of illumination.
Do you think that? Do you want to have one more go with them in a new lifetime?
No, no, I don't need to. And that's the important part for me, Payman. I don't need to have any kind of go around with him because I've forgiven him.
Oh, okay. You moved on. Okay, yeah.
I've moved on.
You
And
freed
I'm only
yourself.
relating, yeah, I'm only relating the story so that
Hmm.
people will understand from their own experiences what they're going through may look bad, but here's a woman who went through hell and risked her life essentially,
Hmm.
um, and still came out of it. I want people to get that corollary, that courage, that strength, that understanding that they can have this. I'm not the only person who can do this. Everybody can do it. No matter what you're faced with, that's my whole point of this story, is no matter what you are faced with, if you have if you have your intentions directed in the correct way, there is nothing you can't overcome. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Totally. Just something came to mind that you said that one of the things that was holding you back is that you didn't know how to move on and how to live and get a job after quitting his your position there. Once you left his job, how difficult, how challenging, how easy was it for you to move on and find a new job?
Well, first of all, Payman, what I went through, I really haven't expressed. What
Mm-hmm.
I went through in the last, let's say, 6 months of my employment there was
Oh yeah,
so ugly, was so vicious that it made me ill.
I can imagine.
I was having migraines. It got to the point where I couldn't eat. I was losing weight. I was nervous all the time
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that here is the end of this, and I don't know what he's going to do to me.
So in the morning when you're waking up, you were dreading going to work, I guess.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Exactly. I dreaded every second. So by the time I left there, um,
You
in
were
my own
relieved.
terms, I was a basket case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was so ill that I couldn't even think. And what I did was the Monday after the firing came on Friday. That Monday, I called many of the assistants to the members in their
Mm-hmm.
businesses. And I called them to tell them that I was no longer there at the club. And they were all shocked and surprised. And I said, well, I just wanted you to know, and I wanted to thank you for all of the times that, we worked together and, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the women was the assistant to the CEO of a very large health corporation here in town.
Wow.
And she knew somehow, without my saying a word, because everybody would say, I can't understand why you're not there anymore. Well, I was let go. But why? We we're going to miss you. This is awful for us. And she understood. Somehow she knew that there was more to the story than I was letting on.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't know what he would do if the story got out. So I still had to be quiet.
Sure. Wait, you froze. Hello?
There, I'm back.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah, I can hear you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. That was the little parrot.
No
That was
worries.
the parrot got in action there.
Okay.
So anyway, um, she said, I would like you to meet with the head of our human services department.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I think that you could have a very interesting talk with her. So I did. I couldn't right away. I had to wait a couple of weeks because I was too
Mm-hmm.
distraught. And she said,
Sure.
you take your time and you do as you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally did go to talk to the woman. And the woman said to me, tell me your story. I told her the story. And she said, have you thought about suing? And I said, yeah, it's crossed my mind. She said, because as I can understand it, as I see it, and I totally believe you, you would have there would be no hesitation to sue.
Mm-hmm.
But now she said, I'm going to tell you the hard part of that. The reality is, Catherine, that there is such a thing as a blacklist.
Sure.
And she said, when you get on that blacklist, it's when you sue a former employer.
You
That's how
become
you get on the
unemployable.
blacklist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you will never work again. So if you're going to sue for more money than it's going to take you to live the rest of your life
Absolutely.
because
I
you'll
was
never
about to say.
work.
I
She
was
said,
about to
I
say
don't
that.
care
Yeah.
if you go to work at Joe's Diner in Timbuktu, Nebraska. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She said they will find out about it and eventually you will lose that job. You'll lose every job.
Wow.
So she said, the decision is entirely up to you. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other what to do. But she
Mm-hmm.
said, just know that if you sue, life is going to be extremely difficult. And so she said, what would keep you from suing? And I said, well, the fact that I can't club work for that belong to the club. So
Mm-hmm.
you see, I have no attorney. So
You get
that's what
disconnected.
happened
Can you
there.
say that
And
again?
it
Sorry,
took,
Catherine. Catherine, can you say that again because the connection was really bad? What did you say? What was gonna
I
take?
said, that, here, I'll see if I can turn up my volume here. Um, she said that, you can decide to sue and then sue for a great deal of money.
Yes.
But I said, I can't sue because I can't afford an attorney. I can't afford the kind of attorney that he will afford for the club.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been sued twice before. And so he calls in the powerful attorneys who belong to the club, and everything's wish-wash and done.
Sure.
So it took me some time just to get my strength back when I would think about going to work for anybody, it was such a reaction in my body that I would just about throw up. I was so
Mm,
I was so used up. So what I
sure.
decided to do was to think about a different kind of life, to think about working in something that I really enjoyed, and I enjoy flowers. So I decided
Mm,
maybe I'd go to school and become a florist.
wow, beautiful.
Yeah. So I did that. I went to school, became certified, got a job, and I worked for about 2 years in the floral industry. And but that didn't bring in enough money, and I didn't get to use my brain very much. I just got to use my creative resources, which was fun, but it wasn't enough.
Mm,
So then I had to go back into the business world.
okay. Wow. What a powerful story. You know, when you mentioned at the start, this the beautiful sentence you mentioned, my first realization of my capabilities gave me the light of expansion, the power of giving, and the freedom of forgiveness. So we just spent the last hour, an hour and a half just talking about that. That was powerful, beautiful. It's what I love talking about you because we
Mhm.
can talk, we can have amazing conversations, not just hearing your story, but your story is full and rich with lessons. Lessons
Yes,
not only for me, but for all of us.
all
And
of
this is
us.
why I love
Yes.
talking to you, and I've been having you more than anyone on my podcast so far. Number fifth time so far, and I'm sure this is we're only getting started. You know, we have so much more to cover and then unpack. But thank you for sharing that, Catherine. But let's wrap it up here for tonight, and we're gonna be doing a part six pretty soon. So thank you once again. And if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, they can connect with me on my Facebook business page, which is K Cooper Life Strategist. They could email me at kcooperlife@gmail.com. Those are two good ways to get hold of me.
Sure, and I will put those in the show notes. So, as always, Catherine, I salute you. You're a true, absolute, authentic leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your presence, with your impact, with your smile, with your lessons, with everything you do. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you, my beautiful friend. Talk to you soon.
Well, God bless you, Payman, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share a story so that other people can gain the courage and the strength to go forward in their lives and realize that there's nothing you can't overcome.
Absolutely. It's
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. This is what I do. It's what I love. You're very, very welcome. And I'm only looking forward for our next conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye bye.